Hi everyone, it's Keisha here with Eros Photography, and I went on a hiatus. This video is several months late. It was supposed to be up back in June, but I'm going to give you a brief explanation as to why it took me this long to get to it. If you want to jump straight into the tutorial, the time is down in the description, but if you are wanting to actually hear me out as to what happened, I'm here to tell you. So basically, I first filmed this tutorial a few days after my grandfather died, and at the time I hadn't really dealt with my grief. I tried to throw myself back into work. I tried to act like things were normal, but it didn't really work. And for the longest time, it took a really long time to feel comfortable getting back into YouTube and getting back into it. Because I started this with the idea that I would be able to keep doing it, that I was fine and everything would be great. But if you've lost somebody that you're really close to, that you love a lot, it's really hard to get back into the things that made you happy. So piece by piece, I was putting back together all of the things that I loved doing. First came my photography business, and then came the social medias. I've been getting back into Instagram, and I've been getting into TikTok, and I just thought I'd start small before coming back to such a huge platform as YouTube is. And part of that was also like I needed to rearrange my whole setup and fix some stuff, but I think I'm finally ready to jump back into it. So for those subscribers that stayed, thank you. For letting me have the time to feel better and get better and come back with a clear head. I look forward to making more videos, and for this new year is going to be pretty great. And I have so many ideas and I'm so excited. But for now, let's jump into a video about editing JPEGs. I think you're going to enjoy it. Okay. See ya in the video. Hi everybody, it's Keisha Aaron here with Eros Photography, and today we're going to be looking at my first photos from when I did a fashion shoot with some old friends of mine. And I wanted to look at these photos because they are JPEgs. So when I first started, I was shooting a JPEG, and I look back at the photos and I'm still really sad. I would love to redo those photos now that I shoot in RAW and have better equipment. But when I first started, that's what ended up happening. So I wanted to take a look at those photos and show you guys how you can edit your JPEG photos that you started out with and maybe get some better results. And mind you, all of these photos still have the edits from when I was just using a regular photo adjustment software, and was way before I ever learned anything about Photoshop or Lightroom. But now that I know how to use those tools, I thought, why not give it a go and see if I can do something better with those photos. Okay, now on to the fun part of all of this, where we edit photos. So I am gonna already have Lightroom open. So yeah, I'm really excited about how all of these turned out, because after I started editing, I didn't realize just how far I'd come as a photographer. And I'm really, really happy with this. So I thought, you know, most people don't know that it's really well known around the industry that you don't shoot JPEG. And that's because JPEGs are small files, they're crunchy, they compress the image, and what you get is what you get. It makes retouching very hard. I know there are some things that I found difficult with this that I think that a lot of people could really learn and come to enjoy. So I'm gonna pick this photo. This photo I really love of Anna. He looks so good. I think it's a really classy photo. I'll show you the before. So like I said in my last editing video, a great crop can severely better a photo. I'll show you another one. The one of Laura. I'll show you the original crop on it. I cropped in a lot on this one because it was like there's even more over here. She didn't take up the whole frame, which is another problem with shooting JPEG is that you don't get to crop in a lot. So fixing how the crop compressed the image is another thing that I had to overcome. So we're going back to this image and we're going to open it up in Photoshop like we did last time. I did adjust this photo. So I'll show you the before and after. So this is what it looked like before. This is what it looked like after. I used some of my presets to get this done. This is what I did in Lightroom. I did my starter preset like I did last time, and then I did the color preset to make things easier. I've streamlined my work by just having these presets. One does lighting and texture adjustments. The other does color adjustments. So I find separating those means that you can diversify between images without having to adjust a whole lot. Okay, so we've opened this up in Photoshop, Control J to create a next layer. So you never want to adjust the background layer because if you have made a mistake, then you might not be able to fix it. If you've done enough corrections, you're gonna have to reopen it and restart over. The first thing that I want to do is, it's pretty soft because it's JPEG. So one of the things that I want to do before I continue is I want to turn this into, I want to create a high pass layer. It's a little high. I'm going to bring that down to about 3. Perfect. Okay. And then I'm going to turn that into an overlay layer. So it sharpened up the photo quite a bit, which is great. The next thing I want to do is make sure while I'm here to get rid of the bags under his eyes, because it's easier to do. It's easier to do it this way. So with a new layer between them, you take your brush tool and zoom right on in there and take a color from nearby and just, it's a little bright. That's right. Yes. This needs to be at 100 and the flow needs to be at 5. I forgot. This is a new one that I found out from a tutorial that I will link down below. So if you want to check it out, it's like a 1-minute video from a YouTube channel I watch. I believe the name is Pixelperfect. So yeah, I'm going to just make sure I have erased everything there. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to take it from a lighter tone and just brush through that a little bit. And that just evens out the skin tone. It's not like he had bad shadows under his eyes anyways. It's just, I wanted to make them less apparent because, you know, I think we were really tired the day that we shot this because we got up really early. Everybody got all done up and then we spent 6 hours between locations. It was crazy. It was a crazy day. So I'm going to press Control Alt Shift E so I combine all those layers. And now I'm gonna put these in a group and ignore them because I don't need them anymore. Next, I'm going to turn this into a smart object. And what I want to do now is get rid of the JPEG artifact on this. So I come to noise, reduce noise. And I've already clicked it because I've done a couple photos. I don't want to do too much of the noise reduction because then I lose all of my detail. But I definitely want to do this so that I can get rid of that JPEG artifact, because that's what makes this look really, really choppy. Because JPEG photos, because they're so compressed, it looks really, really choppy. So doing this allows you to remove that problem. Now I'm gonna do Control Shift Alt E. Again, I'm gonna make this invisible. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna create a second layer, turn this into a smart object. And the last thing I'm gonna do before I start retouching is just increase the detail on the eyes. So I'm going to come back down, do another high pass layer. This is perfectly fine. And then I'm going to come here. And the reason I'm doing it as a smart object is in case I've put it too high, I can change it. So I'll come down here and I'll do soft light because I've already done high pass on this. I don't want to do it too hard. Otherwise what we did with the noise reduction, it's not going to matter. So I do that. and then I'm going to turn that dark. Like I said in the last video, if you do Control or Alt backspace, you can fill that, whatever layer you're selected on, with one of these colors, with your foreground or background color. So with this done out, I'm going to bring my flow back to 100, and then I'm going to press 10 on my keyboard, which brings the opacity down to 10. So if you need to quickly change your opacity, press any of the number keys on your keyboard and you'll be able to change it. That's a quick shortcut for you. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to just, with 10% opacity, I'm going to bring this back to a level that I enjoy, that I like. I'm not one that enjoys a whole lot of grain, but with JPEGs, you do need to settle with the grain a little bit, because otherwise, like, there's not a whole lot you can do. Coming back here, you can't really notice the grain very much. It's a clean photo. I did all right. Back at this time, I was shooting my ISO up super high, so I'm surprised it's not worse, honestly. I'm gonna take that, create a new layer, take all these, put them in a box, because I'm not gonna touch them again. They're there just in case I need them. And I know I'm a psychopath. I don't label my layers. If you need to label them, go for it. I don't. I remember what each of my layers are supposed to be for. So now I'm going to get to the skin retouching. And with JPEGs, you can't do a whole lot of skin retouching. Now you just pick the stuff that might distract, clean it up a little bit, but at the end of the day, the biggest concerns for JPEG photos is anything that is super significant, because as you can see close up, all of this looks a little dirty, but that's because of the noise, and you're not going to fix that. If you're still learning to retouch, I suggest that you do a lot of work on RAWs before you move on to JPEGs, because I remember editing RAW files when I first started, and one of the things that I did was I wasn't used to it, so I ended up creating a lot of patterned skin, which it took a while to learn how to do this right. The patch tool and the healing brush can be weapons of good, and they can be weapons for mass destruction on your photos. It's worth first starting on RAW before you move to JPEGs, because they are much harder to retouch. So there's the skin retouch. It's a lot easier than the retouch I did on Jackie, because with Jackie, I used my A7R4, and the A7R4 picks up a ton of details, which people can zoom in and see. Whereas this, if you notice how I was zooming in, you can't really, after a while you stop being able to see all the details. One of the things that I'm going to do right now is I'm going to press Control-Alt-I, and that's going to bring me into this window. And I'm going to just bring the resolution up just a little bit. I'm just going to make the file just a little bit bigger, because you might need to do high pass again. That's completely fine. I like having more pixels to work with. Okay, so I suggest you do that at the beginning of your retouch. I forgot about it until this moment. So Control-Alt-I and increase your pixels to 300 so you have more to work with, so it's easier for the computer. So I zoom in, and it takes a little bit longer for it to start becoming a problem when you zoom in. Anyways, that's just a thing I do. I could be totally wrong. Photographers could be like, she's doing things crappy. You know what? Whatever. I don't care. This is what I do. Okay, so now that the skin's all retouched, let's do the color retouch. So now I'm gonna go in here, and I'm gonna do a little bit of a curves layer, bringing up the highlights just a tad. Go back to my brush. Hair's pretty highlighted. There's not a whole lot I had to do here. Yeah, just bring that up a little bit, and then curves. Especially when it's such flat lighting here, you don't want to go too overboard. I definitely like to bring some dynamic into the face by increasing some of the important shadows and highlights. I like to give it a little bit more dimension, especially with how flat the photo is already. So I'm gonna take all this, create a compose layer, merge these together. Now the last things I want to do is lower the exposure to create my vignette. With the brush tool, and bring my flow back up to 100, and I'm gonna, because I like vignetting. I know it's super tacky, everybody does it, but I like it, so I'm gonna do it. Yeah, it's part of my editing style, and I think it helps bring a lot of focus to the subject. Now what I could have done is add more blur to the background. I don't think it necessarily needs it, but you could definitely do that. And then it's a little dark. I don't necessarily like it this dark. I keep it this dark at the beginning and then I adjust it later. So I'm gonna bring that back up a little bit. Yeah, so that's a lot. That's a lot. I'm gonna bring that back up again. And then, okay, so that's a nice darkness. Next, I'm gonna add another exposure, and I'm gonna increase it this time, but add some gamma correction. Ooh. There we go. Maybe too much gamma. Perfect. Okay, now I'm gonna make that dark, and then I'm just gonna focus it on his face. So it's again a point of interest. And then double check it. Yeah, I like the way it makes his face pop. And then my last group. And yeah, this is what it looks like before and after. So you can definitely edit JPEGs. They're just harder. If you are still photographing in JPEG, you're missing out. You should really, really consider switching to RAW because it'll give you more editing power and more freedom. But if you like it this way, that's cool too. It's completely about your art and the way that you style your photography. I definitely suggest that you do learn how to edit your photos. That you learn how to light and color grade and do all that fun stuff because editing is half the fun of photography. Thank you everybody for watching. This has been Keisha, the Eros photographer. And if you want to show your support for the channel, please check out the links below for Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Try following some of those if you want to stay up to date with the daily activities that I have going on. And if you're interested, try checking out the link to the Bridal Tea podcast. That's my new podcast about shenanigans that brides have and all of that fun stuff. And if you want to be part of the show, consider emailing me with the link connected to that. Another way you can show support without doing any of that is just by liking, subscribing, hitting the bell for notifications, and commenting below. The question this week is, what style of photo do you like? And maybe if I really like the style, I'll do a challenge of trying to do that style myself. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video, and thank you again so much for listening and watching and all of that fun stuff. Bye!